at a very exciting moment. We're just thrilled to be here, thrilled to come together as three of us because we also have our own successful shows that we're very proud of and we're proud of each other for because we're learning from each other, growing with each other. And isn't that the goal when you try to go to a collaboration group? So, with that, I've got Kelly, I've got Harvey. Kelly's got the Awesome Journey on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Harvey's got the franchise show that's a major hit, just like on Broadway. And he follows this show directly on Tuesdays. And then there's other opportunities. We're putting our toes in the water and hopefully have some cool stuff to share with you. With that said, the word of the day is audience. Chat's wide open. The day is typically best practices, and Mondays when we get together are ROI. So putting both of those together in one show, we thought, why not be as spontaneous and responsive and share what our latest gems or insights or knowledge shares or books or whatever we can do to add more to the selection of choices that you can take away. So Kelly, so glad to have you back again. And, we're here starting a new year with all new wonderful ideas and motivations. What can you share with the audience?
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yeah, audience. I mean, this to me is like a good one for so many different reasons. Because one of the things that I did mostly the end of last year, and I will continue to do into this year because y'all just won't stop, is the dreaded pitch slap, which directly goes with audience. And I think how I did my post this morning was like size does matter sometimes, or size doesn't matter sometimes, because excuse me, people are putting out casting a net like so broadly, whether you're using Sales Navigator or an outside third party tool that plugs into LinkedIn, and sending out mass emails that are that immediate pitch. I just got one before we came on here that was like, love what you're doing with the Awesome Journey. Are you accepting new applications, or do you need, how many more clients would you like to have this month? And I'm like, clearly you didn't even read the profile. It does not even apply to the Awesome Journey. And my point being is when you're casting this net out, and I've had clients say, but I get clients out of it. Like I do get some warm leads that go into a couple of hot leads. But my point being is when you're casting that broad of a net, you're not, maybe you capture a couple. Great, good for you. But the other part of that, how many people are you immediately turning off? And the example I use all the time, when you're sitting with someone, say we're sitting across the table instead of, across the country from each other on a screen. If someone leans at you in a very fast, abrupt manner, your immediate reaction is to pull away because it's energy that you feel the energy and you're protecting yourself and you don't like it. We don't like to be come at like that. So that's what the pitch slap emails do. They make people pull away. They don't want anything to do with it. And what you've done to that person, you've closed that opportunity forever. And in most cases, I'll say it's very hard to get people back once you've turned them off because maybe they wouldn't have been your ideal client right at the moment. They might have been later, or if you would have gone and actually created a relationship with them and understand if they even fit into your audience, they might have referred you to somebody. No, and we do that all the time. Hey, listen, I know somebody though. I'm happy to connect you. So those are my initial thoughts on audience about being purposeful. I think that's a great way to start the year is being purposeful with your connections. Because that is your audience and how you plan on engaging them, and stay away from the pitch slap people.
Harvey, what's your thought? That was great, Kelly. Thank you.
No, it was great. Happy New Year, everyone. I agree totally with that, and I think taking it a step further, I think everybody that's on LinkedIn is trying to build engagement so that they can do more with the people that they are truly engaging with. And it's a very hard thing, actually, to to go from putting out a post to doing business with somebody without going into the territory of the pitch slap, or or liking a couple of posts then doing it. You're not really still building engagement. As Don often says, you've got to make a friend before you make a sale, and it resonates here. And I think with LinkedIn Live and getting a LinkedIn Live right, and using best practices for a LinkedIn Live, is how you start to make that jump from putting content out to building engagement with an audience, to really truly doing something with members of that audience and members and the people you're truly engaging with. Before I started doing a LinkedIn Live, I wasn't really truly engaging. Putting likes or comments on a post is one thing, but what we do here and what I do on my show and what Kelly does on her show with a LinkedIn Live is you're getting to know people. We get to know people on and off screen, and we understand what it is they're trying to achieve on the platform and off the platform. And you start to then build a relationship and a rapport with them if you do things right via LinkedIn Live. The other thing about it is if you have a LinkedIn Live show that you find a niche, you can have a conversation with somebody who it's not a pitch slap to send out an invitation. All you're doing is sending an invitation saying, this is what it is. Do you fancy looking at it? And if they're in the same industry, that's all you're doing. Now, if they register for that, they've expressed a little bit of an interest. Now, if they're then on the show and they make a comment, you can quite easily say, look, let's just have a Zoom call. I love what you said. I really enjoyed your comments. You added value to the show. Then you have a Zoom call with them. And especially if you bring the comments up and you make it part of your LinkedIn Live, you really genuinely start to engage and build an audience. So I think that's my opening thought.
Well, I think both thoughts are advanced thoughts based on the continuous exposure to live streaming, because that's where you get a true relationship. That's where people come away from their emoji, right? And they have to show up on the screen and they have to show up for themselves as opposed to a Zoom. And, the other thing, people are on better behavior when they're in front of a live audience. So when you're talking to somebody on a Zoom, you don't know if they're paying attention. You don't know if they're giving you a second thought. A lot of people think they're doing you a favor by talking to you as opposed to doing themselves a favor. And I think at the end of the day, you figure who's a player here, right? I mean, it's like any meeting. People come into the room, whether it's real estate or insurance, to learn what it is. And at the end of the meeting, everybody says, well, is anybody interested? And I think there are people already interested and know what they want, can't find it. I think the next level of participation is knowing you probably are not the best at everything that people want.
That's right.
But you can be an interface to those people and play some role. I talked to a gentleman, you can believe this or not, but there's companies who are charging $12,000 a month to book you on 15 podcasts.
Wait,
maybe they're big podcasts, I don't know. But to be a guest on 15, let's say, popular podcasts to pay $12,000, and probably the person who's getting it, I don't know anything about it, so it is doing somebody else a favor and getting $12,000 times how many people do it. So the point is in my career, it was always being the interface, not the, you know what I mean? I was like MasterCard. I would hook up suppliers, buyers, and then be the agent of the sale.
Yeah.
Right. And then I had nothing to do with anything except be the agent. So when I look at this, I say, well, how big we're talking 1 billion people, and talk 100 million. That's still a huge number,
Right.
even if we're off by 90%. How many people are doing it Kelly's pitch slap way? The majority. And you know, the other thing about that, if you win, you lose, because that's how you started the relationship, and that's how it's going to duplicate, right?
Yep.
And that's how distant you're going to be from alignment. So anyways, my thought is get into the game and learn how to play at a higher level if you're going to play, from people who are already playing at that level and have now realized there's more they can do through a lot more people than through their own efforts.
Yeah.
Right? Why not get 1,000 people in a room like this, an hour a week, versus whatever. So with that, let's recognize these great people. I love the audience. I really do. Whenever I see people show up, I feel it's worth it. You know, the days when you see nothing there, you feel sorry for yourself. So anyways, we've got Serkan. Thank you for being here. Love to see new people. I know you've been here before. We talked about Carl. Carl's got his newsletter. It's just on fire. I would subscribe to it, not only to support Carl, but it's really good information. Carl puts out, you know, organic, fresh information every day, and that's not easy. Have a LinkedIn user. Good morning. Good morning. A couple more Serkans. Rana Deb's here from India. Always saying the same thing. Oh, and now we've got wishing you a happy new year 2024. So kind of you. You know, and the more we can support each other in any way, a kind word, a comment, you know, when's the last time you gave a recommendation? You know, a lot of times what I'm doing when I make a connection or I want to make myself a little bit more aware, I'll hit 3, whatever it is, those I approve, you know, where people have like 49 different things that they do and people rate them. And I think that's an easy thing to return a compliment or something. Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Got another new individual. Yes, camaraderie before collaboration, Harvey. I totally agree. You know, why don't you give yourself a chance to know somebody before you do something with them? Why would you want them to do something faster than the knowledge of who you are or what you are? It shows not using good judgment, or, you know, maybe there's more to it. Dennis comes back with agree, never too late to be purposeful this 2024.
Yeah.
To engage and learn and stay LinkedIn live, not be dead, but be well fed instead. And, you know, all this stuff we're doing has never been done before. You know, LinkedIn Live is relatively new. The people have done it, in my opinion, don't stand out as much as the people are trying to learn it with the audience. And I think, what could we be a year from now? Unintendedly. I mean, what if something picked you up and threw you somewhere that you wanted to be and you never figured how'd you get there so quick? But, you know, it happens. Leslie's here. Leslie's, you know, got so much going on. You know, Uncle Donald. I'm a grandfather to Paul and uncle to Leslie. And Amy Bola sent me the sweetest New Year's card, calling me LinkedIn Daddy. So, you know, I'm trying to become more and more relatives. I got the hats moving through the organization.
I've got to generate an AI image. For that.
What were you saying, Kelly?
I said I've got to generate an AI image for that. The daddy of LinkedIn.
Well, that's all very gratifying. Good morning, team. Great to see you, Beverly. Beverly's really out there making things happen with her podcast, with every Tuesday being on live streaming with us. And, you know, she's never stopping. She's always learning, always growing, want to be more interested and curious. And I think that's the ingredients for hanging in the game, is enjoying what the next day opens up for you. I'm looking to build a community, a bigger and stronger team that is on the playing field with me, not followers or watch me do what I do. And you know what? That should be your post.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would make that the headline, and that way everybody knows it. And if you keep reinforcing it, first of all, you'll get top of mind awareness. And second of all, you'll get what you're asking for because everybody knows what you're asking for, right? So why not be as definitive as you can? In other words, what you would qualify after a person would come and have a Zoom, you should pre-qualify in themselves by saying wrong place, right? To begin with. So Harvey.
Yeah, I think that you've made some really good points there. I think one of the things that you said there about not being the best at everything, realizing that you don't have to know everything. I mean, all the best leaders know that. They surround themselves. They become facilitators of other people's success.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm doing with the franchise show. I'm surrounding myself with experts in different fields and facilitating conversations and allowing them. And the conversations are informal and relaxed. And when you get that type of situation, people become relaxed. And then, the little nuggets of information that they share because they feel comfortable is really interesting. And I think also you get to know people on a different level when that happens. I did want to say a couple of things. When we talk about 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and I think this is probably worth saying when you're looking to build true engagement and build a strong team like Carl's saying there. When you look at 1 billion people, it's very hard perhaps to get your voice heard, or you might think. And you've got to look at some ways of doing that. Like you've said before, Don, of that 1 billion people, only 18% are even active, and of that, perhaps 2% are posting. When you start getting then down to how many people are doing LinkedIn Lives, I do my LinkedIn Live as an event. Now, there's various advantages for that. But one of the things you can do is to see how many events are on LinkedIn. There's generally speaking 150,000 events. Now, still sounds like a lot, but that's now taking 1 billion people to 150,000 people. Then if you start tying that down to whatever niche you're in, so I'm in the niche of franchising, you're looking at 250 events. Right, so suddenly now you're one of 250. So it's and if you're doing that right, if you're using best practices for that, it's suddenly much easier to get your voice heard if you do it right and you find that niche and you find the right way to talk to or engage with that audience. I can't speak higher of our team here and what we can do in terms of LinkedIn Lives and what a difference it's made to me on LinkedIn. You put a post out, all you can gauge it on really is the likes and the comments. But you do a LinkedIn Live, you're having genuine conversations with people that then result in a Zoom call, or if you're in their location, an actual meeting to say, well, what can we do now? How can we help one another and take things further? I did want to mention as well that Leslie's here and her Think and Grow Rich series is starting its run again this Friday. So she always promotes our shows. So I want to make sure we promote her show. And I've been trying to read Think and Grow Rich, although I bought a copy of it and the writing in it was tiny. So I'm struggling.
You should get the Audible.
I think I'm going to.
Yeah, that makes it pretty easy. But Harvey, I got to tell you, you're spot on. And I know you're talking from experience, not from theory or projection, but what you've encountered so far. So if you have the superior vehicle, right? If you started a Ferrari against a scooter, how long would it take for you to distinguish yourself from that? And how long would the scooter people figure how to get that Ferrari going in their garage? And I think it's all about windows. And really, if you look at the bottom, develop your theme. I got a whole program, and I'm not here to sell. I haven't been selling for 2 years. But it also is a disservice if you know that you can improve your quality of life and your quality of work. And actually, I put that on my profile today. I changed my profile, but like the weather, but here I'll share. Want to achieve game-changing LinkedIn success? I'll just share it on here.
Wow, look at
And I
you.
think this is something that here we go. Share. It's a little tricky here. You got to click this. But you can see, want to achieve game-changing LinkedIn success? Let's build your own branded live stream show. Enjoy thought leadership, strategic collaborating, brand influence, greater ROI, and improved quality of life and work. Now this gets 1 million impressions a year. At this point, I guess I can stop sharing. And that's what you're at. It's a billboard. It says nothing about me. Doesn't say what I do, who I am, anything. I'm not a host. I'm not a whatever I was, because it only matters about getting that message directly to the people who are resonating with it. And I think, that's what's so important, is narrow your message and then deepen your impact in that area. Because to be a thought leader, influencer, is not to be anything but the person who facilitates everybody else. I'll tell you a real quick story. Let's say it's not even a story. There was a guy named Ed Sullivan, right? And in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, he owned TV. He had the Sunday night show, and he would bring acts from all over the world. He actually brought the Beatles to America. Everybody, Rolling Stone, everybody who was anybody came through him. He had absolutely no talent whatsoever. He couldn't sing. He couldn't tell a joke. He was the most unexciting person that you ever saw. But for 20 years in the newspaper and radio business, he made a network of people that he would always be in front of. And history repeats itself in a lot of ways, but it uses different vehicles. Right? And if you have a live stream vehicle, just like when I saw eBay, I saw, wow, who needs a store with inventory? That was like overnight, you'd say, and sell to the whole world versus your neighborhood, right? It was like night and day, and I was in that other business. So, it's easier to see what something is if you know what something was. So anyways, what I'm advocating is, if you're serious about doing something, do something with people who want to help you do something and who are doing something themselves. So Kelly, let me get to the audience, because I know Con's here, and Con has brought so much value to the collaboration group. I mean, it's just a textbook way of learning things that you could never learn. So happy to have Con here. Good morning to this amazing panel of experts and trio of great people. It is nice to have mutual respect and appreciation for the people you're working with. How many people go to work and they got to like suck it up because I'm dealing with grumpy Gabe over there, or miserable Mary or something? Con says, I'm on the move this morning, but want to say hi. Always great to see you. Christy's here. Christy was such a big part of Harvey and Christy on Fridays. Dang, Harvey numbers, you just got my head spinning. It is what it is. I'm happy to say, I'm happy to be in a billion player game, and everybody's just trying to figure out how not to be bad. Harvey, start with the introduction, read or listen to that for tomorrow's story about Edwin Barnes and Thomas Edison and the Ediphone. Well, if anybody knows about Ediphones, Thomas Barnes, Edwin Barnes, and Thomas Edison, it's Leslie. Dennis says, agree, do it right and get you more delight and insight, but stay polite for sure. Why not? It doesn't cost any more to be nice. have standing 11:30 Thursday meetings, so I'll slip out shortly. Great to see you whenever you can. You always bring value, Leslie. Dennis, hats on to all you three. Thanks again for sharing, caring. People do notice. Hats work. Leslie says hello to Christy. Dennis says, agree, narrow your message, but build it. And it's easier for you if you're focused, right? It's like, why not just work one channel, then, back and forth or trying to get more, because that's a scarcity mindset. If you figure it's 1 billion people and you're one person and you're working harder than anybody, smarter, and finding even smarter and harder working people than you to join up with, what's the odds? It's a sure thing. It's a matter of when. And when it happens, it keeps happening. That's the beauty. It's not like you ring the bell, you got to ring it again. It takes care of things. Anyways, Napoleon Hill became the 20th century greatest reporter on success by interviewing successful people for 20 years. Well, they sure found an advocate in you, Leslie. And I'm sure Napoleon, just the whole estate, loves that you continue to promote his name out there. So, I think if people want to do something for themselves, make the investment in you first. Take a class, get a coach. It makes no sense, because the question is, if not now, when? When is it ever going to be right? Versus, hey, I'm tired of thinking about it. I want to just get it done. And I think that's where the fun is trying, learning, failing, getting back up, doing more. It's a good conditioning. So Kelly, so much to talk about.
I know. And just really going off on that, because so many good points that you both have made. But on that last thing that definitely sparked this in me is understanding that your messaging too is a living document, in the sense of you need to listen to your audience, right? Their feedback is imperative for you to be able to hone in on your niche or what have you. And I've known a lot of people, and I shouldn't say a lot. I've had a client that was recent, that's no longer a client. But you can get so intimate with your own product or service, whatever it is, and you see it very differently than what your audience does, because it's your baby. Like, it means something. It feels different to you, that they have a hard time adjusting to the audience when the audience isn't responding the way the way that they think they should. And it's like, because you're not making the shifts that you need to to appease the audience. This is where, when we talk about having, whether it is a mastermind group, an advisory board, or just a close network of friends, that you can be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts? Or, hey, I've been struggling to get past this point, whatever it is. What do you guys have? What's your input or experience that you can do with that? This is where having true conversations with people, and not just about posts, but knowing that you've got to adjust to your audience, because they're the ones that hear the things differently. And I think another thing that I thought of this morning before we came on, the word of the year last year was authentic, or authenticity, I think, depending on where you look it up. And I believe it comes from being the most looked up word. And part of the thing that made me chuckle about that was because AI took such a front seat last year, and the fact that authenticity was looked up so much. But I think that's an important factor with audience. Regardless if you're someone who's doing a LinkedIn Live, which I think people can see authenticity so much easier, quicker through a person that's on screen regularly. You may be able to fake it for a couple of episodes, but people will eventually see that you're acting like something else, if not immediately, as opposed to your content, because that could take longer. But if you do end up going on screen and you don't match your content, then you're confusing your audience. And trying not to be somebody else, or, it's great to be inspired by people and be like, oh, I want to do what they're doing. I love what they've accomplished. Talk to other people, reach out to that person maybe. I've had my mom did it. My mom actually asked me a couple times. She's like, "How do you girls like get like a major general on your show?" And I said, "Well, because we have no shame of asking people." um, because why would you? You're limiting yourself if you don't ask. I mean, and that's beyond, our own network and having connections, but they're meaningful connections. It's not just a number on our profile. But you've got to be open to the feedback and adjusting. And like the other point I want to make before I'll turn it back over is, Christy and I put a date on a calendar and went. Dawn said, "Can you be on in 2 days?" And I was like, "Sure. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I'm going for it." You don't have to have everything perfect before it goes. Learn along the way. That is how we've learned so much by doing this, is because we would get together, we would talk and say, "Here's the issues that I'm having. How can we do this?" Or what are you seeing happen? And even when we see changes maybe in the algorithm and we're like, "Hey, all of a sudden my posts don't seem to be getting as much views or engagement as normal. What are you guys seeing?" Um, because that's how you continue to get better. And it is the whole thing of like, I don't know everything. I'm never going to know everything. But surrounding yourself with people that you can reach out and ask, like, "Hey, Harvey, I had somebody reach out to me about franchising. Here's a connection." Or I don't know how to answer this specific question. It's just going to go to the whole thing about making it a purposeful 2024, I think, initiative for everyone. I don't want to say New Year's resolution, but about making true connections and talking with people and your audience. This is another thing I did talk to someone earlier this week. They're thinking about having a show and they're like, "But I don't know if my audience, how they're going to really respond to it." And I said, "Well, you don't have to have your show ready to go. Why don't you start doing polls and ask the questions? Ask your audience what they're looking for and what they would find helpful. Then you've got feedback before you even launch." So there's so many different things that you can do, but you do always have to listen to your audience. And this show is a perfect example. It's the whole thing that we never had a word before. We started without having a word, and it was just generated by whatever comments the audience would make. And that's how the conversation would go. But we've evolved over time. That's what I'm saying. It's a living thing. You've got to adjust to continue to grow. But we didn't have a vision of where it was going to go. It was like, we're just doing it and we're just going to go for this ride and see where it takes us. But then you do have to have a point where you come together and go, "Okay, what are our long-term goals here? Now that we're seeing that this is working, our audience is expanded, these things are happening, or, hey, we have had failure to launch. We need to go back to the drawing board." Because failure is not the opposite of success. We say this a lot, and I know most of you have probably already heard this. It's part of success. It's just feedback. If you're not failing, you're not pushing the envelope enough. So those are my thoughts right now.
Well, I think they're wonderful thoughts, and they're great thoughts for the show and great thoughts for the coming year ahead. I think the bigger question one has to ask themselves is, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, once you can, and you know what I'm finding is everybody I wanted to be, I found out there was another B up there. So once you got there, you said, "Wow, there's another floor. Let's go to that floor." So by allowing to go with the flow, never definitely force anything or anybody. And with 100 million people, whatever number, I know there's people who are huge that never have a voice anymore, never are recognized. So in essence, if you want to really simplify it, my mother never had a cell phone because she thought it was too complicated, right? And then I even got her a phone where all you had to do was press a button to make them, you didn't have to do anything really. And I looked at so many people when the cell phone came out who were mystified by it, or when texting came out, they thought that was difficult. In essence, what we're doing is sharing a cell phone with someone who had a landline. We're saying, here's a live stream, right? Versus what you did. And if you just allow Microsoft and LinkedIn to take full credit for everything you're able to on board. And you're just the person with the best practices. And here's another element. You're also a co-host or host. You can make someone's show valuable and worthwhile. You can help somebody build their audience. You can help somebody promote their show. And I think the key is how relevant are you right now with what you're doing? And what's so cool, if you go to Audible or you go to Amazon and you type in live streaming for, if you're lucky, 3-4 books totally. And that's on both. I'm not just talking Audibles. If you're talking LinkedIn strategy, I've read them all. I'd recommend 2, and there's like 6. And even every one of them says is if you bought my book 2 years ago, 60% of it means nothing anymore because of changes, right? So if you could have a broadcast just on changes. I mean, Harvey's got the franchise show. Now I'm looking at people and say, well, what do? You're a podcaster? Have a podcast show, right? If you're a builder, have a builder show. Why not? It's like getting the first URLs when they came out. And it's true. So, when you see all this opportunity, the question is not what do you do? There's so much that'll come to you just because the numbers are in your favor. What do you enjoy doing? And are you willing to include people in prosperity with you? Right. And I think
it's also just about learning something new, right? Don't be afraid of it because you don't understand it. Reach out to people who have done it and be like, hey, I'm considering doing this. I mean, that's samey what we're here for. Why do you want to do one? And my question is, why wouldn't you want to do one? And particularly, I'll go back to my opening thing, which will be an ongoing thing through this year about pitch slapping. Why not do something that's just more unique and do your lead gen via a live stream? Like that just to me seems like a no-brainer.
It's natural to you, Kelly. It's so important what you're saying is what could happen is the key. What is the potential opportunity to change your life, to change your family, to change your whole vision of your future? Because this is not a one-timer. This will run 10, 15 years before something. And then if you're good at this, you'll be good at the next thing that comes on. Is we always talk about this, and it's hardly anybody thinks about it. What's your risk? How much could you lose? Right? $1,000 if you consider it investing in people, supporting what's supporting you, and allowing yourself to work hard at it too, right? Not to buy a ticket, get on and expect somebody to take you somewhere. And I think that's really the key, because it's a shame to waste time, to waste life, to waste energy when you could be found in seconds with people who are good at it. So anyways, that's my message this year, is if you do believe in something and you have something you believe has huge value that could save people, help people, support people, why wouldn't you be banging that drum?
Yeah, and I think another thing that we've talked about quite a bit, and one of the things, watching this, over the last, almost year, which is hard to believe, Don, is when we would have people on that had never been on, and even people who were in podcasting and they came on for the first time, and they would be nervous before we went on, like our backstage before we went live. And you could feel the stress, and you could see even when we first went live that they're kind of like, oh, and I've been there, so I totally get it. But by the end, that they were like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. And that went by so fast. And it's kind of like getting that, the sample. I'm not sure if I want to have this fat-free vanilla yogurt. Can I have a taste first before I spend $6 for this small cup? It's that. It's getting a taste of, once you try it, it's like, oh, it isn't even as scary as I thought it was. And it does get the juices flowing of, man, I could do so many things with this. And the initial, my feeling anyways, the initial expense is so minimal compared to other platforms or other things that you could do, that it is just like, why wouldn't you try it and try to put it in your strategy? Those are just my thoughts. And sorry, that sounded sort of pitchy, but I meant it more as like, try it before you buy it.
Well,
Um,
I think that, you know, we're singing the same song because we believe in it. And before turning over to Harvey, it reminds me of, I don't know if you know Mr. Beast, but he's the number one YouTuber, and
oh, yeah.
and he's a billionaire now, right? And you know, my grandkids like watching some of his good shows, and he had a show where he was going to allow 1,000 deaf people to hear, and he got it in touch with the hearing aid people, and they had an issue that they finally figured out they could fix, and he filmed everybody getting their hearing for the first time,
Oh,
you know.
awesome.
And that it made it worthwhile. And then they decided they'll do 10,000 people next,
Mm,
right? Because of the audience that's creating revenue. He earns 45 million just on YouTube a year, and that's not his biggest revenue source. So the point is if we're not giving people hearing, but we're giving people their true voice and
mm,
aligning them with their relevant audience, right? That's huge, because
yeah.
people are trying to go through the mob and the crowd out there on normal LinkedIn, right? It's either who has the most fantastic illusions, right? People jumping off of buildings and landing in an ocean and walking away, or like Kelly says, the over aggressive, disrespectful, throw stuff against the wall and go back and grind it out the next day. And you know, uh, you know, when you see the light, it's hard not to continue to want to see more of the light. Let's just say that. Dennis comes back with agree, go with the flow, stay in the know, not in the know. Harvey, you've been waiting patiently. This is a great conversation.
I've been listening, and it's been fascinating stuff. And apologies, I keep coughing. I have a little bit of a cold, but
No worries. I did earlier. I apologize.
I wanted to go back to something that you said, Kelly, earlier about the audience, and going back to our word today. And I quite liked about what you said about getting feedback from your audience, and trying to know how your audience, because your audience, and when we're talking about audience in this respect for LinkedIn Live, you're talking about the people that you want to be involved in the show, the people that you want to grow a deeper relationship with, and perhaps collaborate or do something else with. And you want to know what it feels like to be them. And I had a really interesting conversation, because I had a conversation with somebody who was a guest on the show, and they had the experience of what it was like to be on the screen, looking at the comments coming in, talking about those. And then they were in the audience of the next show. And they said that the how it made them feel was different on each occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were a guest, we were bringing in lots of comments by the audience, and he made a comment that he said there was a slight balance in favor of the audience. And I said, okay, that's fair enough. It's good to hear. But then when he was in the audience, it was completely the other way around. He felt like he was being involved in the show, and that he felt valued as part of the audience. And I think it's really important to recognize how it makes people feel to be part of an audience, and to do these things together. So I wanted to touch on that. The other thing that I wanted to say about is engagements and what that truly means as well. Because LinkedIn and other platforms have different ways of making us think that we're engaging with an audience, and whether that is emojis or likes or comments or other analytics. But the true engagement is, LinkedIn is a business platform. So, are you engaging with and building a community? I like what Carl said about building a sort of a team as well.
Yeah.
I also like what you said, and I'm picking a few things here because lots of things were said over the last sort of 10 minutes or so, but I quite like the idea, to talk about polls as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly and I have said that we launched our shows before we were ready, and I still firmly believe it's the way to do it, to just to just take action. Taking action is the best part of any plan. But taking a poll is dipping your feet in a little bit. You will get a few answers. So it's an interesting way to begin. I think just starting is the best way to go with your audience. But yeah, Don, you said a few things as well. I had a meeting today, a Zoom call with, I can only describe him as a franchising legend. I mean, he's been in franchising for 54 years.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible career. What he doesn't know about franchising, I mean, he grew two businesses, both sold at $500 million, and amazing character. But do you know what he said to me? He said he could easily retire and go and sit on a beach. Because Don, you were saying about giving people a voice, especially people that have perhaps had a career like that, and are trying to find a voice. And he said he could retire and go and sit on a beach and sip cocktails and see out his life perfectly comfortably. But all of that knowledge would go to waste. And he now does 100 podcasts a year, including now being on the franchise show, I will add. But but one of the things he said is he wants to change people's lives. And I like that. And he says that he can do it with these platforms and by being able to speak to an audience, and to listen to an audience as well. He said that his motto, whatever you call it, his values in his business was having fun and improving lives. And I also like that as well. You've got to enjoy what you do. I mean, that was my kind of thoughts for this round. I think it also about the fact that if you can't do it yourself, you can do it as a team, or somebody else can do it.
Sorry. Go ahead and finish. I apologize.
I was also, I've been trying to think about it because as you now know, I don't pre-plan any props. So
Love it.
So I had to kind of think as we go to see how kind of the conversation was going, and how the audience are, what they're coming up with. And I was looking around, and something did come to me, and it's this one today, right? Which we all know what this is.
Cube.
It's Rubik's Cube, which is completed, I will add. And when I was a little boy, I could never do these things. Okay, there was always somebody I knew who could. Right.
Yeah.
This Rubik's Cube was completed by my 14-year-old son, and I'm incredibly impressed by it. The fact that he can do it, but it just the reason it reminded me of this is because we've been talking about, if we can't do it alone, can we do it together, or can somebody else do it? And can we shine a light on them and show them how it's, that they've done it. The other thing I love about this is it's got lots of individual colors on it, which I think neatly represent an audience. And there's lots of different ways to move this. I'm not going to muck that up because it looks nice, but there's lots of different ways to move it, to have it completed and for it to look like this. And it involves a lot of little moves coming together. But ultimately, it's it was my son who did this, so it's recognizing somebody else, so there we are. There's the prop.
Well, that's terrific, because everybody has and wants to hear someone else's story, right? If you would have just showed that cue by itself, people would have recognized it, but not understood what was involved with it. And I think that's where live streaming and getting to know people at a personal level and a professional level, but not a competitive level. Because if you would have went into that conversation with the legend trying to make him appreciate your distinction or whatever, it would have been, like Kelly says, it would have been repelling. When you honor somebody and when they tell you, because like I said, I had an experience with a gentleman that changed my life for 12 years, took me everywhere and shared so much that he didn't have to. And I always use him as a pattern, or as a, here's what I'd love to find and here's what I'd love to be. Is he was the same way. A guy never makes it to having $1 billion if he didn't have 500 million or 100 million. And most people who are not into the passion of what they're doing would have stopped at 50 million or 10 million. They wouldn't have kept going. The money was a result of their passion, not a reason for it. And sometimes you got to pay yourself in different ways in order to encourage people to play. Another example is, let's say you got a basketball team, doesn't have any equipment, doesn't have anything, and you sponsor them, right? Now they get to play. If you say, well, these people are good people and I'll help them be better people and the people they want to be if they're willing to work, and then you leverage this against bigger businesses who could really use something like this and make a huge difference in the lives of those companies and of the world. So, I mean, it has global benefit, but it starts with individual reach. And it's really identifying who are the people who want to go to work with you and who are the people you want to work with. And then what are you going to put together to make it worthwhile? Because I think everybody has to come in with a proposition, right? Whatever that proposition is. And it could be money, it could be an exchange, it could be just whatever it needs to be, but it has to be, if I do this, you do this, we do that, right? Because then you've got some relationship versus catch you when I catch you, and that doesn't scale. So anyways, everybody here who's been here obviously sees the value of what we've been able to do in the last year. More importantly, how we've grown so much. Because when you look at me, there's a part of Kelly in me, there's a part of Harvey in me, because I've traded up. Charles, I've taken some of his concepts and ideas, and to Harvey's point, the people we talk to, who is privy to a major general's psyche, who talks to a legend of franchising as if you were some moderator on a big TV show that they would appear on, right? And I think what they want is what you have to give, and what they have is what you want, right? They want honor, they want respect, they want people to hear their voice, and we have that, let's say, gatekeeper capability. So, that's what gets me excited. People look at their bank account, your money's never going to save you. Believe me, it's going to be your ability to respond, to grow, to build, to change, not lean back on what you have, but really expand what you want and what you can have. So I'd say, Kelly, am I right in choosing? Harvey was last. So Kelly, love to hear more.
Yeah, so many things. I mean, and this conversation could go on for so many reasons. But just kind of to expand a little bit too on what both of y'all were saying, but particularly Harvey, as audience, one of the other things to really consider when you're doing a live stream is, because there are replays, and your audience isn't just who's there on the live. I get a lot of people, and I'm actually surprised on an occasion, and I have been even in just the last couple of weeks, of people who have reached out to me and said, "Hey, I was forwarded the link to your live show, and it was one that was a while back." And they'll be like, "I really enjoyed this. I would love for you to talk with this person because they would probably be a great guest, or this would be a good topic, or I just think you need to know them. Like there's nothing else, or they're local in your. I'm in Phoenix, they're in the Phoenix area. You two need to connect. Doesn't necessarily mean about business, um, and what your audience can do, because now there's that trust, and it expands again beyond the live because it still lives. Um, but I do like the lives, and I'm tuning the Major General today. But as an example, he was just emailing me this morning about something else, but he's going to be out here in Phoenix sometime in April, I think. And it's for a big veterans mental health convention. And he was like, "Well, I'll let you know the dates, because I'd love to have you come up and be there." And I'm like, "I love that." So again, the audience is going to expand beyond anything that I could have even planned, imagined. Um, I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. I've met some amazing people, and just kind of a little bit of a reminder that the reason I started doing all of this to begin with was just I was feeling out of sorts. I was not feeling fulfilled. I was feeling I wasn't living in my purpose, and I just needed something more. And I needed something that was holding me accountable to showing up for something, because I wasn't feeling good. And the amount that this has changed my life, and I'm talking personal, not just business, because I agree with you, Don. It doesn't matter about the money in the bank account. And I did lose someone at the end of the year. And every time you lose someone you love, it's a reminder of they weren't sitting there going, "I wish I had another dollar in my bank account." They just wanted more time with their family. And I think those are the things that matter. And we're here for a short period of time. And the connections that you can make beyond the number, to me, is what matters. And they will open doors that you never even could have dreamed of. Um, so there, I'm ending on a little bit of a more emotional, thoughtful thing, I think, than I ever intended. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now.
Well, I think that's where everybody wants to be at, and you're already there, right? Going from where you were to where you are, seeing where you could be. And you know what you have to trust is other people to trust themselves to do the right thing, right? And what I found is if you keep providing value, someone will relate to it, identify it, and take care of you, and take care of you well, because there's only so many people like you who would do that, who would continue to build as if you're getting paid I told my kids that. I said, no matter what you get paid, work as if you're getting paid more than you ever thought you'd get. And eventually it'll match up, right? I was always into internships, working for free. And my son went from 2 years of working for free to being a general manager at a professional club. And, he had to tell me, "Oh, my friends are making money. They're buying cars. I'm sitting there working for nothing." I said, "Yeah, but look at where you're working at. Look at who you're working for." I mean, he was working for the Broncos. He had his own office there. So what I'm not trying to get away from is do everything you can as well as you can for the right people who appreciate what you do. And they won't want to lose your company, because my partner, he didn't need me for anything but friendship, really, and camaraderie, and somebody who would be a good listener. And, and that's what I became. And if that's what it was to be successful, I was honored, right? And that's what you can do for people here, is you can open doors that would never be opened. It's not one day it would happen. And you can change lives, and, waking up every day knowing you're changing lives, and the people you're changing are going to change more lives.
Well, and they change you, right? I mean, I think that's even a bigger beauty of all of it is, and I said this on a kind of year-end wrap-up with Christy, is like, I truly feel this way. I'm a better human because of I started doing this, and for the people that I have met, have gotten to know, and the stories that I've heard from them that they've shared. So I think it goes so much beyond again, what we could ever imagine when you're doing something out of, from a good place or from a passionate place, a servant heart place. I do think what comes back to you is so far above what you could ever imagine. And I think I'm sort of reiterating what I said
No,
last.
I think it's important. And before we swing it to Harvey, a lot of times you're honored you can learn in a social setting, in a conversation from someone, right?
Yeah.
Who's sharing what they learned because it's important for them to figure it out. So a lot of times you'll trade one perspective for their perspective. Everybody looks at it better, right? How many people come on and they feel ashamed or embarrassed, and when you put in perspective, like everybody that I talk to is there just like you. It didn't change the circumstance, but it changed about being alone, being the only one doing this. And I think if all we do is say it's okay, you're okay, and it'll be okay. If that's all you told somebody, and that was enough to say, okay, that's something more, gets me thinking. And, it's that extra step, and most people never take the first step. Let me help you get it going, right? You ever show something to a kid and he doesn't quite get it, and you say, hey, let me show you how to tie your shoes one more time, and I'll let you do it. You go back and forth, and then they get it, right? So just to leave somebody with knowledge and direction without actually getting him in and saying, try it, jump out of a plane, do something of that nature. Harvey, whenever the three of us together, and I think that's why, building so well individually is collectively we come back together, right? And then calibrate, right? Get everything where it needs to be and then move forward. So Harvey, so important.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic what you both said. I think fantastic final thoughts, and I couldn't agree with either of you more. I quite like actually what our resident rhymer has said, which is people who help other people open doors are adorable. But I like that as something to finish with, because opening doors for other people. And I've always had a mentality of trying to focus on other people. On the franchise show, it's about talking to other people and letting them shine on a platform where you are as well. But by helping them or letting them have that space to talk and tell their stories and bring value to something, then, like you both said, that comes back to you. It just does come back to you. I also like what Don said about your son, and or work somewhere work on something as if you're being paid in money more than you could ever imagine, and that will come. And it's certainly not the most important thing. It's a result of what you do and what you love doing and what you do well and what you help others to do. And if you just keep on doing that and keep on building and working with your community or your audience, then that success, whatever you want it to be, will come.
Well, and I think to what you said about that legend is always making fun part of every step of the journey, right? Because that, just like making a friend before you make a sale, having fun while you're doing something takes the work, stress away from everything. When you can't wait to learn a little bit more from somebody you just met, how many people do you meet every day in your life that are new and exciting?
Very quickly, Don. His name's John T. Hewitt. I need to name drop him.
Well, I'm just saying but here you get a chance to meet so many people from so many lands, so many cultures, so many directions, that you don't have to deal with scarcity. You just have to say, okay, I'm not that. Here's who you got to talk to, until you find that person who is that. And eventually you find people. And I think the good thing about what strings us together is that commonality of wanting to be a good force out there in the world, wanting to help other people. And, if you take it one step lower, you have the opportunity, and then you have the door to the opportunity. I look at us as just handles to the door. right? All we do is open it up when someone's ready to walk through it. And just like if you take being of goodwill, if you see an older person or a person of challenge, wouldn't you run to get the door for them? Right? If you could get there before they could and you see they're having a little difficulty, wouldn't it be like, hey, this is something I can really do right now, like Superman, without really doing anything super? And what a difference that makes when that person sees what you're doing or takes some packages from them. And what did you give up? 30 seconds, a minute? You know, and I think if people would build on those minutes and start with a minute, start with a comment, you know, why hold back from the people who could be opening things up for you? You know, because we win together and we can celebrate together. So with that, great opportunity to have these conversations, and we're getting more open, more blunt in some ways, from a standpoint to say, hey, just do it. Do something. You know, one last thing. I know there's never a one.
Really, the last thing.
Take anything you're planning on doing and haven't done, do one of them, right? If it's make an appointment, if it's check a bank balance, whatever it is, do one of them. It'll be good practice for tomorrow. And you'd be surprised. One thing getting done every day that you put off will get you caught up. So thank you again. Tomorrow, we're talking Friday is a special day. This is a 4-person show that came together as of yesterday to become 4. And it's so cool how it just comes together. And we've got Julian Roberts. We've got, I can't think, I'll think of it really quickly, or I'll look at the calendar, which is, we've got Dan, and we've got Paul. And they're 3 people who are very successful in their own fields, which really align with what we're doing here. So hope you can make it. Con says the extra mile is never crowded. Until you get there, there's nothing like open field, right? You see a soccer game or a football game and someone breaks free and nothing but net in front of them. Isn't that exhilarating? Wouldn't it be great if every day you stepped into open field for yourself? You know, I mean, it happens. So with that said, take care. Bye for